Welcome back. This video is still about communication. It's about multisensory learning styles. We all have different learning styles, and usually we have one that is more dominant, more prominent than the others. We have verbal ways of learning. We have nonverbal ways of learning. And the ones I'm going to focus on here are visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We also have olfactory and gustatory, but I always said that unless you were my age and eating paste in elementary school, probably we don't lose gustatory unless it's at lunch or at some kind of a party. And we all know there's all kinds of smells in a school, especially when the cafeteria is making those wonderful hot rolls. We're going to talk about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Every person, when they're focused on a particular learning mode, may use metaphors that give you clues. I learned that there were visual and auditory and kinesthetic learners in my classes when I went to college methods classes. I knew that. I could write the answers down on a test. I could get 100 on my test, but I didn't know what that meant for me to teach, and I didn't know how to identify the people that I was teaching, what their learning style was. So this is another level, because I'm hoping that this information can help teachers, especially novice teachers, know what to do. If a person is a visual learner, they most likely talk with their hands, much like I do. I'm definitely a visual learner. They learn by icons, by the printed page, by things that they see, watching somebody do something. That is how visual learners tend to learn. And quite often visual learners may talk really fast. They may not complete all of their sentences because they have so much information inside and they want to get it out before they forget it and get it out to where it is visual to them. They may use metaphors such as, see you tomorrow. I see what you mean. Look at this. Picture this. Watch. Those are all metaphors that would be used for visual learners. The auditory learner may talk in slower forms. They usually have more complete sentences. Words are very important to them, specific words and descriptive words. I would have auditory learners sit like this in my classes before I understood this, and I would think they hated me because they were blocking me off. What I learned was they were shutting down the distractions so they could really focus. They take, even the students I still have today that are auditory processing, that's their higher level, they take very few notes because that's distracting to them and they want to make sure they're hearing everything. The auditory learner may use metaphors such as, listen to me. It sounds like you are, something like that. Or it has something to do with, hear me out. I told you, what did you tell me? Talk to me, speak. These are all metaphors that someone who is in auditory processing mode may be saying. The kinesthetic learner, this is someone who usually is really in tune with their body. Maybe these are students that are really strong in sports. They may speak very slowly with a lot of pauses, and they are taking all this data, all of this information, all this sensory input from visual learners or from auditory learners, and they're having to process it and put it into their mode of learning and be able to embed that information in them and then reproduce it again so that it makes sense to another auditory or visual learner. Someone who is a kinesthetic learner, and realizing that all of our learners have all of these three, and the younger they are, the more concrete you want to be. But let's say an older student or an adult, they may say things like, it's hot as fire, it's cool as ice, did you catch that? Those kinds of things that have senses, something to do with sensation. I'll give you an example of how me figuring this out helped me when I was giving a private voice lesson. I was a church musician for a while, and one of the ladies in the choir took voice lessons from me. And I really liked her. She seemed to really like me, but we always seemed to struggle in the voice lessons until I realized she was truly an auditory learner. I tend to be in visual mode until I get really deep into the music, and then I can go into auditory because we have this auditory medium around us. I was saying things like, watch me do this, did you see, look at this, when I realized and listened to her that I needed to use metaphors that were focused on sounds, that were focused on listening, talking, speaking. Tell me what you're hearing. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you think of this measure. Tell me why you're struggling with this. Those types of things. And all of a sudden we had the best voice lesson that we had ever had together. That was a huge aha moment for me. My recommendation to you is make sure that you see it, say it, or sing it, or do it in every lesson, every time that you're together, and you do them all at the same time. As an example, an instrumentalist, they have this process of see, say, and do within their instrument because they are visually looking at the instrument, they're looking at everyone else's instrument, they are looking at the conductor, hopefully they're looking at the music, and they have all this visual strategies going on around them, all this visual input. They're also hearing, auditorily hearing themselves. They may be hearing each other play. They may be hearing instructions from the conductor. So they've got auditory processing as well, and that auditory sensory input. They also have the kinesthetic because of the instruments they're playing. They may be using different fingers. I play clarinet, so I automatically go to that. They may have this sensation of really making that rhythm or that pitch line up with something that they're doing kinesthetically. So it's easier to do this, in my view, in an instrumental rehearsal. If you have someone in an elementary class, though, you can still be doing the same thing, pardon me, with the barred instruments. That's why the Orff strategies or the methodologies and world music drumming, using either one of those because they've got that huge sensory input all the time. So the creative elementary teacher can use all kinds of instruments, all kinds of visual icons, body percussion, all at the same time. So the students are singing or speaking, they are doing some kind of body percussion or something physical with their hands, and then that way, or their feet, some part of their body, then they're also looking at each other playing or using some kind of visual icon. You can also do the same thing in choir, but sometimes in my view, it does take more practice. That's why solfege is so effective, because there is some kind of a physical body movement that is correlating to individual pitches. And using some kind of body percussion, feeling, tapping the beat or the subdivision on your sternum, stepping the beat, all those kinds of things with choral students so that they're constantly using their body as they are learning music. And when you use kinesthetic, auditory, visual all the time together, when they're in the learning process, it's going to embed the process of learning and it's going to be quicker. You won't have to go back and review it as much. So the main takeaway from this video is sing it or say it, do it, and look at it every single time. Sing, say, play, sing, say, do, speak, say, do, however it works for you in your individual teaching. Time is precious for all of us, and I greatly appreciate that you spent some time with me here. Thank you.